Imagine a strategic battlefield where the stakes are high, and every move can change the tide of a war. For weeks, one nation has relentlessly targeted the lifeblood of another's war machine, its oil infrastructure, using long-range drone strikes. Each strike, a calculated blow, has cut deeply, causing mass shutdowns and affecting nearly 20% of Russia's refining capabilities. But the battlefield is not just about oil. Ukraine has shifted its focus. On September 8, in a stunning display of precision, Ukraine launched a coordinated assault on key gas pipelines, delivering a devastating triple strike that disrupted Russia's nerve center for energy supply. By September 9, reports emerged of substantial explosions rocking the city of Penza, located approximately 388 miles southeast of the capital, Moscow. Eyewitnesses recounted the blasts, which rattled windows and sent locals rushing into the streets, bewildered and alarmed. According to Ukrainian intelligence sources, these explosions targeted critical gas conduits in Penza's Zhelezno-Dorozhny district, the same pipelines capable of transporting up to 2 million barrels of gas daily, a vital resource that funds Putin's military operations in Ukraine. Yet the strikes were not limited to these major arteries. Smaller pipelines supplying local needs were also taken out. This dual attack not only crippled Russia's capability to export gas but also threatened to leave Penza's citizens shivering as autumn chill set in. In a tactical blow, Ukraine recognized the imminent demand for gas as temperatures dropped. Their aim? To ensure that Russia's energy export revenues dried up right when they needed them most. But how did Russia respond to this audacious onslaught? As expected, they simply denied any damage or acknowledgement of a successful Ukrainian operation. Strangely enough, Russia didn't cling to its typical narrative about drone debris causing the explosions. Instead, local government officials hastily declared the blasts were merely planned exercises, an assertion that left many scratching their heads in disbelief. What kind of exercises involved substantial explosions at such an hour? Was it truly a facade to hide the fallout of Ukraine's precision strikes? As the narrative unfolded, it became apparent that the Ukrainian strikes were universally more than just tactical wins. They were strategic blows delivered right to the heart of Russia's war resources. But would this campaign of disruption hold the weight necessary to influence public sentiment within Russia? With more actions anticipated, the situation continued to draw intrigue. Would Ukraine's calculated attacks continue, or would Russia be forced to acknowledge the damage done? Stay tuned as this story develops. Each attack not only reshapes the battlefield but also the perceptions of those on both sides of the conflict. Engage with the nuances and revelations of warfare as we delve deeper into this unfolding saga. The narrative unfolding between Ukraine and Russia has become increasingly intense. Just as autumn approaches, Ukraine has turned its sights on Russia's crucial energy infrastructure, launching drone strikes with precision. The result? A staggering 20% of Russia's oil refining capacity is now compromised. But that's not all. On September 8, Ukraine strategically targeted gas pipelines, delivering a firm blow to Russia's artery of war that funds its aggressive campaign in Ukraine. In a shocking twist, the city of Penza became the focal point of chaos as a series of violent blasts erupted, sending shockwaves through its streets. Reports from the Kyiv Post detailed how the explosions rocked the Zhelezno-Dorozhny district, home to vital gas conduits capable of transporting millions of barrels of gas daily. This crucial resource fuels not only local homes but also, importantly, Russia's war efforts. The coordinated strikes were a masterclass in strategic warfare, crippling both the export pipelines and the local supply, just as the demand for gas was set to rise with the onset of colder weather. But how did Russia respond to this significant loss? With its usual denial. This time, however, the Kremlin shifted its narrative. Rather than blaming drone debris, local authorities bizarrely labeled the explosions as planned exercises. As Penza residents panicked, local media quickly reassured them, claiming there was no need for alarm. Ignore the sounds you hear, they urged. What you witnessed was merely routine practice involving emergency services. Can you believe it? An exercise that sparked such loud explosions in the dead of night? Meanwhile, intelligence sources revealed that these very gas pipelines were known to support military operations against Ukraine. Just 3 hours prior to the Penza blasts, Ukrainian drones targeted another pipeline in Saratov, further underscoring a deliberate strategy to dismantle Russia's energy capabilities. What do you think? Were these explosions truly spontaneous drills, or was there a more sinister intent behind them? As we peel back the layers of this conflict, it becomes evident that Ukraine is not just striking at infrastructure but is also fighting back with a clever strategy that seeks to undermine Russia's financial muscle while simultaneously making life difficult for ordinary Russians. The pressure is mounting, and the true scale of Ukraine's tactical genius is beginning to surface. What could possibly happen next? Keep your eyes on the horizon, as this unfolding saga continues. Over the past weeks, Ukraine has unleashed a relentless assault on Russia's oil refining infrastructure, employing long-range drone strikes with devastating precision. Each successful hit has led to significant shutdowns, crippling as much as 20% of Russia's refining capabilities. But Ukraine's strategy isn't limited to oil alone, gas pipelines are also targets. On September 8, Ukraine scored a monumental victory, launching 3 strikes that further weakened Russia's energy backbone. In a shocking series of explosions in Penza, a Russian city nearly 400 miles southeast of Moscow, the impact was profound. A Ukrainian intelligence source revealed that 4 explosions rumbled through the Zhelezno-Dorozhny district, home to crucial gas pipelines capable of transporting up to 2 million barrels of gas daily. This infrastructure not only fuels Russia's economy but also supports the military operations against Ukraine. Ukrainians weren't merely targeting exports but also local pipelines that warmed the homes of Penza's residents, all while the chill of fall crept in. Did Ukraine understand the stakes of this timing? As temperatures drop, the demand for heating gas skyrockets. This clever strike ensured that Putin's ability to profit from his nation's energy resources would be severely hampered. Meanwhile, Russia's response remains absurdly detached from reality. Instead of accepting the damage done, local authorities branded the explosive sounds as planned exercises. This baffling proclamation was designed to calm the citizens but felt like a thin veil over the truth, a desperate attempt to mask a legitimate threat. Early reports of explosions at around 4 a.m. raised eyebrows. How could an emergency drill produce such deafening noises? A more reasonable explanation points to targeted strikes against pipelines vital for Russia's military endeavors. The absurdity deepened with further drone strikes just hours later, as Ukrainian forces targeted a pipeline in Saratov, hitting the Kuibyshev-Lysychansk trunk oil pipeline. This conduit has an annual capacity of 82 million tons and primarily fuels Russian military operations in Ukraine. In a striking display of miscommunication, Russia attempted to downplay the situation by citing planned exercises, even as flight restrictions were imposed at the Saratov airport the next day due to the ongoing threat of drone attacks. The cost implications were staggering. Airlines faced severe financial repercussions for what Russia claimed was merely a routine drill. Yet, this isn't an isolated incident. Just weeks earlier, on August 13, Ukraine launched a kamikaze strike against the Druzhba pipeline, located just 25 miles from the border in the Bryansk region. This attack resulted in catastrophic fires and significant disruptions to the pipeline, a critical component of Russia's energy transport network. As we delve deeper into these incidents, the alarming reality reveals itself. Ukraine is not just targeting physical infrastructure, it is systematically dismantling Russia's economic lifelines and military resources. With Ukraine inflicting pain on these key assets, Russia's claims of accidents and drills grow increasingly hollow. What's next for this high-stakes game of strategy? As Ukraine continues to reveal new vulnerabilities in Russia's energy grid, how will the Kremlin respond as the power shifts? The tension mounts. In a striking series of maneuvers, Ukraine has targeted key elements of Russia's energy infrastructure, crippling its oil and gas supply lines. The mission to disrupt these resources isn't random, it's a calculated strategy. Recently, attacks focused on the Oneka oil pumping station in the Bryansk region, which sits a mere 25 miles from the Ukrainian border. Taking out this vital hub, part of the extensive 5,592-mile Druzhba pipeline network, meant stalling oil flows that fuel Russian military operations. As if that wasn't enough, on August 26, Ukraine's drone struck again, igniting a fierce fire at the Ryazan-Moscow oil pipeline. This conduit is essential for transporting petroleum products straight to the heart of Russia, supplying not just civilian needs but also vital military fuel. By hitting this axis, Ukraine ensured that Moscow's gasoline stations faced significant shortages, leaving many locals without access to fuel. And if the strike disrupted supplies destined for the front lines, that was just a bonus. 3 major strikes within a month meticulously targeted pipelines vital for the Russian economy and military, showcasing a deliberate effort to undermine the Kremlin's resources. This is not merely about inflicting casualties on the battlefield, which have already surpassed a staggering 1.09 million, but rather an intricate financial offensive aimed at choking off Putin's economic power. What if Ukraine's strategic blows to Russia's energy backbone could pressure the very heart of the Kremlin? The implication is stark: without the ability to export oil and gas, Russia's revenue streams dry up. This practical and cunning tactic effectively brings the war to the citizens of Russia, raising questions about the government's stability while avoiding direct civilian harm. With the state of the pipelines under constant threat, Russia finds itself in a precarious situation. The looming question remains: can a nation sustain a war when its critical financial lifelines are being severed? Ukraine's strikes on Russia's pipelines aren't just isolated blows, they're targeting Russia's lifeblood. These pipelines aren't merely metal tubes, they are the veins through which Russia pumps its oil and gas to global markets. They deliver fuel directly to customer nations or to ports where Russia's secretive fleet ships fossil fuels under the radar. Sever those veins, and you starve the giant. Since the invasion began, Russia's energy exports have been shrinking. Reports reveal a staggering loss close to $47 billion between 2021 and 2025. Shockingly, European demand alone has dropped by 14%. It's as if the whole world is turning its back on Moscow's energy empire. Looking closer, Russia's oil and gas industry forms nearly a third of its federal budget. Most of that money, flowing from oil product taxes, is funneled back into military spending. Oil dwarfs gas here, making up 85% of these budget funds compared to 15% from gas. Together, they're supposed to bankroll billions that keep the conflict raging. In early 2024, things still looked strong for Russia. Oil and gas revenues hit 11.1 trillion rubles, roughly $120 billion. Damage from sanctions seemed manageable, and the shadow fleet was non-stop, hauling fuel wherever it could. Yet 2025 tells a different tale. Month after month, income from oil and gas tumbles. The once thriving pipeline network is bleeding dry. Imagine the heavy hum of machinery at a port, the sharp scent of crude oil hanging in the air, and the steady rhythm of pumps pushing black gold across continents. That lifeline is now under relentless assault. How long can Russia hold out when its energy pulse is being drained? Is this the silent battlefield that could tip the scales? The story of this quiet but deadly war between pipelines and profit is just unfolding, and its next chapter might decide the fate of a nation. In a gripping tale of resilience and strategic strikes, Ukraine has been relentless in its assault on Russia's oil refining infrastructure using advanced drone technology. For weeks, each targeted hit has severely disrupted about 20% of Russia's refining capacity, signaling a determined effort to weaken the nation from the inside. But Ukraine's tactical ingenuity doesn't stop there. It has also focused on crippling the vital gas pipelines that fuel Russia's war efforts. On September 8, the audacity escalated as Ukraine launched a coordinated attack, successfully striking multiple gas pipelines located in the Penza region, a hub that transports an astounding 2 million barrels of gas daily to external markets. This precise operation not only interrupted Russia's ability to fund its military ambitions but also struck at the heart of local needs, depriving citizens of their essential heating supplies just as colder months approached. The immediate aftermath saw a series of explosions resonate throughout Penza, shocking residents and raising eyebrows. Whereas one might expect a nation vehemently defending its territory to acknowledge such attacks, Russia instead resorted to a veil of denial. Claiming the explosions were merely planned exercises, officials attempted to redirect public attention, including a major conduit in the Saratov region just hours before the chaos in Penza unfolded. Here, the Kuibyshev-Lysychansk oil pipeline, which plays a key role in supplying Russia's troops in Ukraine, came under heavy fire. In a desperate attempt to salvage credibility, Russian authorities again attributed the damage to routine exercises. Yet, such claims rang hollow amid imposition of flight restrictions at the Saratov airport due to the anticipated threats of further drone strikes. These audacious operations are reflective of Ukraine's larger strategy, disrupting Russian revenues and cutting off the flow of essential resources. As Ukraine systematically dismantles key oil and gas arteries, the financial impact on Russia becomes starkly evident. To add fuel to the fire, reports from the Moscow Times revealed a grim outlook for Russia's energy sector. In March 2025 alone, oil and gas revenue fell by an alarming 17% compared to a year earlier, translating to a staggering loss of nearly $2.7 billion. Sanctions, unfavorable pricing, and a plummeting ruble all contributed to this downturn. Yet the situation worsened. By August, the financial strain had intensified, with Russia's finance ministry citing further significant losses across the sector. May, June, and July saw consecutive revenue declines, severely limiting the government's projected income. The shortfall slashed expectations for the year by an astounding 25%. Amid these declining fortunes, Ukraine's calculated pipeline strikes are not mere acts of defiance, they are surgical precision aimed at breaking the very backbone of Russia's economy and its war efforts. As the battle rages on, one must ponder, will Ukraine's strategy of targeting economic lifelines prove to be the decisive blow that reshapes the military landscape? Time will tell, but the stakes have never been higher. In a dramatic turn of events, the impact of Ukraine's relentless drone strikes on Russia's oil and gas infrastructure is being felt deeply. For weeks, these audacious assaults have crippled Russia's capacity, leaving it vulnerable and desperate. On September 8, Ukraine launched a series of strikes targeting vital gas pipelines, further tightening the grip on Russia's war resources. With each successful hit, Ukraine isn't just disabling pipelines, it's dismantling the financial lifelines sustaining Russia's military ambitions. Imagine the roar of explosions echoing through the Russian city of Penza, where 4 significant blasts reverberated on the early morning of September 8. This region, crucial for transporting millions of barrels of gas daily, suddenly found itself in chaos. Ukraine isn't merely attacking assets, it's cutting off the very essence that fuels a regime's aggression. But what's truly shocking? Russia's officials had the audacity to downplay these explosions as planned exercises. While chaos and panic spread among the citizens, authorities insisted there was nothing to worry about. Stop and think, how absurd is it for a government to claim that massive blasts were mere practice drills? Is it possible that they underestimated the scale of the destruction? As the fall chill sets in, the urgency of the situation escalates. With energy demands rising and winter looming, Ukraine's strategy is chillingly precise. Strikes against both major export pipelines and local conduits were not just tactical, they served to remind Russia that its grip on European energy independence was slipping. As authorities scurry to cover up the situation, the reality unfolds: Ukraine strikes where it counts, and Russia's resilience may be waning. Just hours before targeting Penza, Ukraine struck another pipeline in Saratov, raising further alarms. What would compel a nation to impose temporary flight restrictions at an airport in response to planned exercises? Something smells fishy. The truth lingers just beneath the surface, unsettling and glaring. The escalating fear surrounding these attacks reflects the stark reality that Ukraine is successfully targeting Russia's economic arteries. Evidence is mounting. The effects of these actions on Russia's revenue projections are alarming. Growth projections are slashed as the economy struggles to cope with rising costs and dwindling resources. An energy titan's war rages on, and the battlefield extends well beyond the actual fight. Ukraine innovatively chips away at Russia's power while avoiding civilian casualties, cleverly bending the financial landscape to its advantage. However, the critical question remains: can Russia adapt quickly enough, or is it already too late? The very strategies that once gave Russia an upper hand are crumbling under the weight of these attacks. The erosion of its financial power could mean not just a shift in balance but the unraveling of Putin's grasp on his ambitions in Ukraine and beyond. As the repercussions deepen, the world watches. Will Ukraine's offensive expose the frailties of a once mighty adversary? Or will it only serve to stoke the fires of conflict further? The answers lie shrouded in uncertainty. As both nations brace for what comes next. For weeks, Ukraine has executed a strategic campaign targeting Russia's oil refining infrastructure, unleashing a series of drone strikes with precision. Each blow has led to significant disruptions, knocking out nearly 20% of Russia's refining capability. But this is just the beginning. Ukraine isn't only focusing on oil, gas pipelines have also felt the wrath of its strikes. On September 8, Ukraine achieved a remarkable success by striking 3 vital gas pipelines in Russia, further crippling its war effort. As reports emerged from the Kiev Post, a wave of explosions echoed through the Russian city of Penza, situated about 388 miles southeast of Moscow, the day before. An unnamed Ukrainian intelligence source revealed that 4 explosions had erupted in Penza's Zhelezno-Dorozhny district, home to major gas conduits transporting up to 2 million barrels of gas daily. This gas fuels not just locals but also funds Putin's invasion of Ukraine. Ukraine didn't stop there. In a clever operation, they targeted additional smaller pipelines in Penza, aimed at supplying local residents with much-needed gas. As Ukraine struck, the temperature began to drop, signaling the onset of fall. Ukraine's strategy was clear, ensuring that the demand for Russian gas would skyrocket as winter approached, denying Putin a crucial resource for income. In response, Russia's strategy was predictable: denial. The silence from their government was deafening. Surprisingly, they didn't fall back on their typical excuse about drone debris causing the explosions. Instead, local authorities resorted to an absurd narrative, claiming it was all part of planned exercises. As Penza's residents experienced chaos, local media assured them that the sounds they heard were harmless, dismissing their fears with the words "planned exercises." Yet, how believable was that excuse? By 4 a.m. that fateful morning, the truth started to unravel. Was it really a routine drill, or were these explosions a sign of an effective strike targeting gas pipelines supplying military needs against Ukraine? Russia's excuse began to look weaker when soon after, Ukrainian drones hit another pipeline in the Saratov region. This time, they aimed for the Kuibyshev-Lysychansk trunk oil pipeline, crucial for supplying fuel to Putin's forces in Ukraine. While Russia continued to spin narratives of exercises, they imposed flight restrictions at the Saratov airport, hardly a typical response to military drills. The facts were undeniable. Ukraine's unified strikes had successfully penetrated the heart of Russia's energy network. With no air defenses activated, Russian emergency services desperately scrambled to contain the fires ignited by Ukraine's assaults. And this was just the tip of the iceberg. The sequence of events began a month earlier when Ukraine targeted Russia's fossil fuel network with devastating drone attacks. In August, they struck the Druzhba pipeline, a critical fuel line just a short distance from the Ukrainian border. The implications were staggering. By incapacitating the Oneka oil pumping station, Ukraine disrupted a key artery controlling the flow of oil to the front lines. Fast forward to August 26, Ukraine struck the Ryazan-Moscow oil pipeline, further crippling a supply line to the Russian capital. While the intention was clear, hitting Russian military supplies, the impact reached into the civilian sphere, causing fuel shortages for ordinary residents. All these strikes tell a story: Ukraine has found a way to directly impact Russia's financial stability by targeting its oil and gas infrastructure. It's a calculated effort to bring the battle home, inflicting economic pain without civilian casualties. The calculations are strategic: if you cut off Russia's resources, you weaken its war machine. As the EU draws further away from dependence on Russian energy, the situation becomes even clearer. Moscow's hold begins to waver, and the looming question remains: how will Putin respond when his resources begin to dry up? The strategic maneuvering by Ukraine is about more than just military victories. It's a clever and emotional push to alter the course of the conflict and weaken the Kremlin from within. The fate of millions hangs in the balance as the battle for resources unfolds. Can Ukraine continue to pressure Russia in this way, or will the tides of war shift yet again? For weeks, Ukraine has relentlessly attacked Russia's oil refining infrastructure with long-range drone strikes. One by one, Ukrainian forces have brought down crucial facilities, threatening up to 20% of Russia's oil processing capability. But it's not just oil that's on their radar. Ukraine is hitting gas pipelines too. On September 8, a series of strikes devastated major gas conduits, showcasing Ukraine's strategic blitz against Russia's energy lifelines. Picture the chaos: massive explosions rocked the city of Penza, which lies approximately 388 miles southeast of Moscow. An anonymous Ukrainian intelligence source revealed that 4 of these blasts occurred in the Zhelezno-Dorozhny district, home to 2 major gas conduits that transport up to 2 million barrels of gas daily, fueling not just Russian homes, but also its war machine in Ukraine. As these pipelines went up in flames, Ukraine cleverly struck a blow that would not only disrupt Moscow's export capabilities but also leave Penza residents facing a chilling winter without heat. Could there be a more perfect storm? As temperatures drop, demand for gas skyrockets. Ukraine's strikes are not just attacks, they are tactical moves aimed at crippling Putin's war chest. Meanwhile, the Russian response has been laughable at best. Instead of owning up to the barrage, local authorities claimed the explosions were planned exercises. Is anyone buying that? The following day, the situation escalated further when drone strikes targeted another critical pipeline in the Saratov region. The Kuibyshev-Lysychansk oil pipeline supplies fuel to the Russian forces occupying Ukraine, and its damage had immediate consequences, leading to flight restrictions at Saratov airport due to threats of more drone attacks. The narrative of exercises was crumbling. Could the authorities keep painting a picture of routine air drills in the face of such devastation? Ukraine's assault on these energy arteries isn't simply about disrupting supply, it's about striking at Russia's economic heart. As the nation attempts to weaponize energy against its adversaries, Ukraine has skillfully turned this weapon against Russia, highlighting the ineffectiveness of Putin's bluster. With each successful strike, Ukraine chips away at Russia's already dwindling credibility as a reliable energy supplier. Despite bold claims, the reality of a gas shortage weighs heavily on Russia, making their situation increasingly precarious. In light of Ukraine's strategic assaults and an ongoing commitment from Europe to phase out Russian oil and gas by 2027, the revenues flowing into the Kremlin from energy sales could soon become a trickle. What if Ukraine's strikes are the key to dismantling Putin's facade? Each explosion reverberates beyond borders, sowing discontent among Russia's energy customers, including powerful nations like China. As Ukraine continues to thwart Russia's energy dominance, the question looms, will Putin's empire endure on borrowed time? In previous discussions, we've investigated how these disruptions lead to domestic fuel shortages within Russia. Ukraine's strategy has proven effective, placing immense pressure on Putin, who now must reconcile this internal turmoil with his ambitious objectives abroad. As the energy crisis deepens, whispers of discontent grow louder. How long can Russia sustain this conflict when its very lifeblood is under siege? The final chapter of this unfolding drama remains uncertain, but Ukraine's relentless pursuit of independence has awakened a new battlefield in the fight for energy supremacy. For weeks, Ukraine has relentlessly targeted Russia's oil refinement capabilities, launching long-range drone strikes that have severely disrupted operations. Each strike compounds the devastation, resulting in shutdowns that affect as much as 20% of Russia's refining capacity. But Ukraine's campaign doesn't stop there, it has also set its sights on Russia's gas pipelines. On September 8, Ukraine executed 3 precise strikes that targeted vital gas conduits in Penza, a city located approximately 388 miles southeast of Moscow. These lines aren't just infrastructure, they represent a vital supply line for exporting gas, primarily funding Russia's military ambitions in Ukraine. The attacks successfully disabled key pipelines, including 2 main lines capable of transporting around 2 million barrels of gas daily. Meanwhile, smaller local pipelines that provide heat for the residents of Penza were also hit, making this a dual blow against Russia's military and civilian resources. The timing of these strikes, as autumn approaches and temperatures begin to drop, is no coincidence. With winter nearing, the demand for gas will inevitably climb, and Ukraine is determined to ensure that Russia's coffers remain empty and that its leader can't profit from this strategic resource. Reacting to the explosions, Russian authorities have opted for denial over accountability. Rather than admitting the strike's success, they claim the loud blasts were merely planned exercises. It's an absurd statement, especially when reports indicated that the explosions occurred around 4 a.m., hardly a common timeframe for routine drills. This denial reached absurdity when, just hours before the explosions in Penza, Ukraine also targeted a pipeline in the Saratov region, crippling a conduit responsible for supplying fuel to troops occupying Ukraine. Even within Russia, the excuse of planned exercises fell flat. As temporary flight restrictions were imposed at Saratov airport due to fears of further attacks, the magnitude of Ukraine's actions became undeniable. Ukraine's successful strikes have created a ripple of anxiety within Russia, amplifying the already palpable discontent among civilians. An air of depression settles over many cities, according to exiled journalist Andrei Soldatov. Why is this sense of despair growing? Because the long-range drones, which were previously operational beyond Russian skies, are now striking home, destroying energy infrastructure and forcing communities to confront the consequences of Putin's decisions. How much longer can the Russian public bear this burden before the tide turns against their leader? As Ukraine continues to disrupt Russia's energy supply, the question remains, what will it take for the residents to rise against the war and challenge the status quo? The strikes resonate louder than any military action ever could, forcing the people of Russia to confront the reality of their situation. Will anger eventually eclipse depression, paving the way for change? The unfolding situation paints a chilling picture, a nation on the edge. Caught in a conflict both internal and external, where every blast of a drone reverberates with the promise of transformation. Not long ago, long-range drones began tearing through Russia's energy network. These flying machines didn't just disrupt supplies, they shattered the illusion that the war was far away. From gas stations running dry to homes growing cold, the hum of drones brought a creeping despair to Russian cities, a creeping feeling that Andrei Soldatov called a heavy fog of exhaustion and sorrow. But how long before that creeping despair boils into open anger against Putin? That remains a chilling question. What we do know is this: Ukraine is relentless. It knows that the more every Russian, soldier and civilian alike, feels the war creeping into their daily lives, the stronger the push will grow to end it. And Ukraine's campaign isn't random, it's a ruthless economic chokehold designed to bleed Russia dry without a single frontline battle. Russia's soldiers stand caught in the middle. Their command struggles to supply them with fuel, ammunition, and resources as the money from oil and gas exports dries up. Each hit on pipelines chips away at Putin's war chest, leaving troops armed with empty promises while Ukraine's drones strike deeper. The soldiers face a grim future, sent to fight a war increasingly starved of the means to wage it, while the Kremlin's grip slips further. On September 8, another powerful wave of strikes hammered Russia's gas and oil pipelines. This wasn't just sabotage, it was a message carved in fire and smoke: Ukraine is not easing up. The echoes of explosions will likely be heard again in coming weeks as these relentless attacks continue. But it's not only about pipelines anymore. Ukraine has brought a deadly new weapon into play, the so-called Hell missile. Silent, precise, and deadly, it's already been used to slice through Russia's command centers, one after another. Imagine the tension deep inside Russia now. An entire military infrastructure, once thought impregnable, is unraveling before their eyes. Putin's empire of energy is crumbling, not by tanks and artillery, but by invisible drones and pinpoint strikes hitting vital arteries from afar. Is the mighty Russian war machine finally grinding to a halt? Stay tuned, because the war's shadows are lengthening, and Ukraine's war against Russia's energy lifelines is far from over. The countdown is ticking, and each strike draws the noose tighter around a fading regime. What happens next could change everything.